Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Talk of a Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury rematch in the United Kingdom at Old Trafford in front of 75,000 people. Well, it's ended up just being all talk. Frank Warren, Tyson Fury's promoter, has confirmed the most likely outcome for a rematch is another United States fight. So there's a story, ESPN, which I'll go through some of the quotes and wade in along the way. A bit to get through, so buckle in. Let's go. So in terms of Frank Warren, just scrolling down to the first quotes here, we're trying to make that fight at the moment. Everyone wants the fight, and most importantly, the fighters want it. The venue is looking like the US, and that's where the money is. Tyson was disappointed with the judging with the last fight, as was I, so a lot of things need to be sorted, but the US is where they want it, probably second quarter. Vegas would be one of the options. I wouldn't want to go back to California. I didn't like working with the Californian Commission, and there was a lot of things we didn't like there. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here before continuing. A couple of points to make. On the location, the rematch likely to be in the United States again, potentially in Las Vegas. Okay, so that makes, for me, a lot of sense because when this sort of fight ended in a controversial draw on December 1st, a rematch for both these guys, it looked like the likely option of where they should actually go because, you know, there was unfinished business, a lot of controversy, but more importantly, there was a lot of interest. It was going to make sense to run it back again. Just financially, it's going to be a bigger fight the second time around. And where a rematch was going to go is always going to hinge on where it makes the most money. So all the talk about, you know, in the UK, potentially in a stadium, that sort of stuff, if it didn't stack up financially, it wasn't going to happen. And if you look at the situation in terms of the numbers that it did, we don't exactly know the UK pay-per-view. There's been different numbers bandied about. The United States market, 300,000 odd buys. They've got the interest, you know, of the market. It's a decent response the first time around with all the publicity, the hype, the controversy, and them doing it again and looking for a definitive and conclusive result. It's going to be a bigger fight and make more money. And with the market already having whetted its appetite, it does make some sense, a lot of sense to make it back in the United States, especially given the pay-per-view prices are so much more than in the United Kingdom. So if they're looking at just straight number crunching and they're going, okay, if we expect this to do maybe, you know, just finger in the air stuff here, 600 or 800,000 buyers at $75 for high definition pay-per-view, that's going to make, you know, quite a chunky change as opposed to a £20, which is about $25 a million pay-per-views in the United Kingdom. That it's just going to be about straight finances where the money is, and Frank Warren's effectively admitted that, saying that's where the money is in the United States. Okay, on to the next thing, judging. So Warren says Tyson was disappointed, as was I. A lot of things need to be sorted. Yeah, there's only so much influence they will be able to have over the selection of judges. A commission, you know, will want to be seen to be independent, want to be doing the right thing. Ultimately on the night, you know, the commission, Frank Warren, Deontay Wilder's people can only have so much influence over the judges. Otherwise, it's going to be, you know, they'll be accused of being biased, corrupt, or whatever. The judges themselves, some of it falls on them. There's, you know, a lot of people like to throw out, oh, people are paid off and other bits and pieces. And, you know, who knows? There is this sort of spectre of that within boxing, especially when you see some of these dodgy cards. But at the end of the day, they might be able to get a neutral judge, one from the UK, one from the US, and the neutral. It's probably not going to get any better than that. They can only have so much influence over the commission where the fight is taking place. Otherwise, you know, that's a bad look in itself, especially if they're seen to be trying to influence, you know, the potential result, which ultimately comes down to three people sitting around, you know, different sides of the ring scoring the fight. We know that the Mexican judge from the first card, Alejandro Roshan, that was a dreadful card. Even in spite of the knockdowns, it would have had Deontay Wilder winning more rounds than Tyson Fury, which for many people is just completely farcical. But I digress. Anyway, we'll move on to the next bit. Vegas would be one of the options. I wouldn't want to go back to California. I didn't like working with the California Commission, and there were a lot of things we didn't like there. Well, I think we can rule out California based on what Frank Warren is saying there. But that does start to limit the options of where to go. Las Vegas, that would be, in many people's minds, a first choice for the rematch if it's in the United States. The other option, likely option, being in New York, have it at the Barclays. I think it's probably likely to go to Las Vegas just on what's being said here. Frank Warren's mentioning it, and I guess, they'll be beginning to have a look at what's around in terms of dates, venues, what's available, all that sort of stuff. And they'll be looking at, what can we do here with the tickets and such. Remember, the first fight, it didn't sell out. And there was the ticket flexing when there was more interest, there was price surging, all that sort of stuff. And ultimately that sort of stalled ticket sales to some degree. You'd hope if it was in Las Vegas that it would sell out 20,000, but who's to say that it will? It's hard to know. But, with the hype, the interest, the controversy of the first fight, hopefully it would sell out. We'll have to see on that. But it depends where and when and how much tickets are, because people often don't want to pay, through the nose, especially if they know that they can get a deal last minute. And there were a number of people who were getting some pretty sharp deals in the final days when there were thousands of tickets left for that December 1st fight. And Frank Warren, he continues, Tyson is already in the gym working hard, ticking over, and I think we would get it before June. He, and he's talking about Eddie Hearn, says all these things, but what he says and does are two different things. He said he wanted the fight for Joshua with Wilder last year when there was an $80 million on the table, but it didn't happen. Joshua will fight Dillian Whyte or Jarrell Miller next. We all know that. We're not complicated. Tyson is the most uncomplicated person you will meet, and he will fight anyone. He went to Germany to fight Vladimir Klitschko. He went to America to fight Wilder. It's Barry and Eddie Hearn's agenda that complicates it. Joshua is their cash cow, and they want to keep milking it. And this is a narrative that is starting to build, within the sort of boxing fan community. That, especially now that sort of Dillian Whyte, who works in the same stable under Matchroom, he's accusing Anthony Joshua of lowballing as well. And, when you are the cash cow trying to protect your position, you're always going to get a bit of that. But if Joshua's not careful, that sort of perception is going to take hold, and then he will start getting more of the blame if fights don't get made. Because the three fights that people want to see, Joshua Wilder, Joshua Fury, and obviously Fury Joshua. So a mix of those three guys are the fights people want to see the most, because we want to know who is the best of the generation. But Frank Warren, of course, it's in his interest to sort of say all these things too, because he doesn't have Anthony Joshua, he doesn't have the money, and he's getting the smaller offer in a Joshua and Fury fight. Whether it should be 50-50, well, that's ultimately over to negotiations. I actually don't really care what splits they get. I would just want to see the fights, but I can understand why there is the sort of commercial A and B side, but it doesn't make boxing any easier, especially for fans when you want the fights. But these guys, they're prize fighters after all. They want to take as much as they can while they can, because you never know how long you'll be in the sport. And in some cases, like Tyson Fury, sometimes you can have 2.5 years out of the sport. But money makes the world go round, makes boxing go round especially. But it also complicates things at the high end of the game here. We want the best fights, but sometimes money is the stumbling block to that. Because if it was just 50-50 or whatever, we would have had with these fights already. But some of it is about milking it until it is a bigger and better fight. And since talk of Wilder and Joshua started about 18 months ago, it's grown and grown in terms of what it would be when they eventually do have the fight. That, long-suffering fans, are getting very tired and weary of what's going on. Okay, so Frank Warren, just to sum up here, saying the fight between April and June, Las Vegas, a potential destination, but it will be in the United States because that's where the money is. And both guys want this fight. But realistically, if they weren't fighting each other, where would they go? If they are not happy with Anthony Joshua and the offer that they were getting, because they want 50-50, both of them, Fury and Wilder, they have nowhere else to go really in terms of getting a big money fight. They could have big fights, but it wouldn't be nearly as big as facing each other. And let's face it, this rematch makes a lot of sense. And I'm very happy that they'll make it because I want to see it again. Sure, I had a bit of a sour taste in my mouth after that first fight because of what happened, the judging, some of the scorecards, and the fact that it was a draw. It was a bit deflating. But I want to see it run back again, and hopefully we don't see any dodgy scorecards the second time around. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.